Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President Jay Simons.
Thanks. I paid this guy down in the front to woo. How's it going? Hey, everybody, welcome. Night before Summit, thanks for coming. Who's excited? Yeah. We've got a great show planned. Thanks for coming the night before to register, get ready. In the spirit of the theme of the event, who knows the theme of the event? Shout it out. Yeah, team up. All right, again, the people I paid in the front got it. I'm gonna rely on you, or I am relying on you to team up with me for a little bit of an informal fireside with our co-founders and co-CEOs, Mike and Scott. So thanks for all the questions folks submitted. There's a ton of content that we worked really hard to prepare for you over the next couple of days. This gives us a chance to kind of kick off our shoes, although we're not going to do that, and have an informal discussion about the company, our mission, the culture, how things are changing. So we're going to spend about 30 to 40 minutes with Mike and Scott kind of going through that. And then we're really excited to have the founder of Room to Read, John Wood, here to talk a little bit about the impact the Room to Read is having on the world, in part with a lot of your support and contributions and Atlassian. So without further ado, I would like to bring to the stage our co-founders and co-CEOs, Mike Cannon-Brookes and Scott Farquhar. Hey, mate. All right, here we go. So I want to start with an easy one and have you guys share your views on the U.S. presidential election. Actually, don't do that. Don't say a thing right now. Don't say anything. Actually, you know, the word that matters most to Atlassian is a four-letter word. Any guesses? Don't say that. No, just team. And it defines us in a lot of ways, including, the fact that we were started by a team. You two guys. We're led by two co-CEOs, a team. You two guys again. And maybe I'd like to start with you, Scott, and talk a little bit about, for the people that don't know, how you got your start, how Atlassian got its start.
Thank you. Well, firstly, welcome everyone to Summit. I'm really excited to have you all here. Mike and I started in university. We met because Mike was the guy in first year university you'd copy all your assignments from. Everyone knows that person, right? The person does too much work. And by the time we got to fourth year university, neither of us were, we'd both found someone else to copy assignments from because both of us were sort of the smarter people.
A little busy by then.
Busy running a company. And then, I guess in the end of university, neither of us wanted to get a real job. In Sydney, you could go work for consulting companies or a bank, and that wasn't really exciting for us. We wanted to, kind of build software in a new way. And Mike was, I guess, the smartest person I knew who was dumb enough to be a co-founder for me.
And Mike, was Scott the smartest person you knew to start a company with?
As I like to say, he's the smartest person. He's the smartest person I knew that you wanted to start a company with. That sort of more street smarts, get shit done, rather than just massively high IQ, but you're like, whoa, I don't want to work with that person every single day.
Yeah. And so where did the name Atlassian come from, and who came up with it? And the second part of the question is, what were options number 2 and 3?
Sure. So it came, firstly I should say it's very scary. You run our marketing department, you know this, but it's extremely scary if you think about how little time we spent coming up with the name. Probably T-minus 10 minutes tops. Now it seems like a crazy short amount of time. We should have spent more. It came from Atlas, so I did Latin, Greek, classics at school, and Atlas was a Greek titan, for those who don't know. He was actually kind of a bad guy, and he was punished. His punishment was to hold up the sky. So they thought he was on top of the Atlas, what are now the Atlas Mountains in Morocco, holding up the sky. That's why it didn't fall down. And so we took this as an effort of legendary service. He was service to the world, holding up the sky, and we turned it into an adjective. Domain name was available.
Surprise.
I don't remember if there were any options 2 or 3. I don't think it was like a big process.
Yeah.
When you're onto a good thing, don't bother with number 2 or 3.
It worked really well.
Yeah, awesome. So Scott, you guys have been at this for a while now, 14 years. And I'm kind of curious about what's different about how the two of you work today than when you started the company 14 years ago, and the company was a lot smaller. What's different and what's the same?
I think the same is we still share an office in Sydney, so we have desks next to each other. I don't think Mike's sat at his desk for years. It's got piles of books and other things on it. But we share an office together. We still do lots of things, sort of everything together. We still, I guess, have that good combination where we both have unique strengths, so that's really useful. We both, share a lot of information and, kind of bounce a lot of things off each other. The difference is when we started, we were in the early 20s, and so, pretty much every night after work was drinking, and, Friday afternoon was kind of, the start of the weekend, whereas now we both have families, 3 young children, and so after work is more family-orientated than it was before. I still hope there's people inside Atlassian that are going out and having fun every night, but we sort of now cater to that and to the family side of things as well. And
then we started, the first product, Jira, was a team product. Like, what was it about teams that excites you both, back then and even today? Like, what is it about improving the way people work or focused on, improving, people to achieve different outcomes that's exciting?
Maybe it's the fact that even when there were 2 of us, it was just so hard to work together as a team that we had to invent a collaboration company to make it easier.
I think it's certainly evolved over time, obviously. For anyone who used the first version of Jira 0.7 or 0.8 or something, it was unrecognizable to what we've done today. But we certainly knew at the start we wanted to pick problems that weren't going to go away. Software technology world's really hard, but certain problems are long-lasting. And certainly we thought teams and projects were both problems that weren't going to go away, right? Like, what's going to be here in 20 years' time? It's going to be teams of people trying to work better together, and they're going to be running some projects. So it seemed like, for 2 young guys, a pretty good area to kind of start in. And then we've kind of figured out a lot more along the way.
I know that one of both of your favorite things is to collect stories from customers about how they're using our products, what their teams are doing as a result of using our products. And I'm kind of curious what maybe each of you could share one of your more memorable stories that customers shared with you over the course of the last year. Scott?
Yeah, there's plenty of companies that use our products in ways you'd expect with software teams or project teams. But there was a company called Specialized who make bicycles, and they're not very far from here in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And their company's gone through a tremendous change because you used to ship a new bicycle every couple of years, and now you've got to the stage where every year you put out a new version of every bicycle you have in your catalog. And so their entire company has had to change the way that they work together. And they use our products across everything that they do, but one of the most eclectic examples I heard of how they use it was they have a machine room that churns out new parts so they could test out on the bikes. And they do this on a weekly basis where they try out a new way of manufacturing and new parts. And they use Jira Service Desk to coordinate and prioritize all the things that the machine room does, which parts to do first and what's urgent. And I thought that was an interesting example of using our products in a kind of a completely non-technical way.
Man, it's a long list. I'll give you 2 short examples. One, yesterday, partner won an award for delivering our software into one of the largest museums in New York, and they move billions and billions of dollars of art around the museum and work out what needs to be repaired and fixed and all sorts of different things and use all our tools to do so. Again, it's a non-technical use case, which is really awesome. And again, it's a classic. It was replacing emails and spreadsheets and stuff. The art was getting lost somewhere in the archives, that sort of thing. But a personal favorite is always, I've been to visit NASA twice now, and geez, if you told me 14 years ago that I'd be going to NASA to go and do a customer interview, I'm like a kid. I'm like looking around going, wow. So that's amazing. And then when you think that, I think it was the Mars Curiosity, every single line of code on the Mars Curiosity went through one of our tools, which is, again, something we could never have conceived of when we started, that they would do that.
Yeah. I think it's probably true ever since a bunch of us got together and made the wheel, that teamwork has been both exciting and super challenging. And technology, I think, is always, over the past couple of decades, has had a lot of promise to change the way people work and improve how we communicate and get things done together. At the moment, there's certainly a lot of hype around things like machine learning and artificial intelligence and virtual reality. And I'm interested in how both of you see some of the technologies of the future changing how teams work. When will I be able to prioritize my backlog with a pair of goggles on, or dragging and dropping things around in the air? Mike, who wants it?
Yeah, look, we've tried that in the VR lab in Sydney. It wasn't actually so. It was kind of cool as a demo, but didn't work super well yet. Look, I think that's obviously hugely changing technology. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how things like VR change the way we interact. There's obvious applications for like remote work and things to be more personal and feel like you're closer to someone. I think that's going to be amazing to watch. I think things like ML and machine learning, AI, are absolutely changing our products. I mean, we shipped the smart series of features in Jira Service Desk last year. We've continued to add a whole series of different features to different products. We certainly learn a huge amount in the cloud from using some of those types of technologies. I think what's important, what we try to do is, where possible, make the technology kind of disappear. You shouldn't have to care if Service Desk uses some sort of machine learning algorithm to get smarter about things. It should just be smarter for you. I think that's where where I think the technology really sings, if you don't have to know what's inside it.
What technologies are you excited about, personally?
Well, I moved my family to the US for a couple months this year. Most of the time I'm in Sydney, and for various reasons I could be here over the summer. And I ended up buying the Amazon, I think it's Alexa or the Echo, I can't remember what its real name's called. Just a show of hands, who has an Amazon Echo? So that's probably about 5% of the room, maybe. And I thought it was just awesome, example of how voice can change the way you work. We just had one in the kitchen, and it was great converting from Celsius to Fahrenheit, which I always find is a complete thing that blows my mind when I come to the US and try and cook over here. And my kids would use it all day to ask, Alexa to tell them a joke, which is pretty cool. But playing music, getting directions, how long it's going to take to get to work, all that stuff works now with voice. And I think it's going to change in organizations, how voice brings stuff to your work. It seems crazy that we go into a meeting room these days and then plug in your laptop and connect to some arcane video conferencing system, and you want to take minutes of the meeting. You sort of have to do something separate. That should all be voice controlled. So your meetings, you come in and you say, hey, record meeting, or get action items, or add action item, or call Mike up, and it should know that Mike is, running late, but his phone tells me that he's in a taxi and he'll be here in 2 minutes. Does he want to join by video? All those things will happen in the future. And so the area we want to play is, where can we bring teams together? Because all of that's individual things, but I think team collaborations can be changed by a voice in some ways. And the other one is machine learning and artificial intelligence. There's a lot we can do once we've got stuff out of people's heads into machines or into some sort of textual form. In many organizations, the big problem is getting stuff out of people's heads. It's kind of hard to automate the stuff that's in your brain. And what we bring to the party is often getting that collaboration out of email. Instead of sending emails, put stuff in Confluence. Instead of sending tasks around your organization in email, put them in Jira or Jira Service Desk. And with that, we can then start automating the way work goes around your organization. So I think the machine learning stuff's going to be a big one. And beyond teams, I think genetics is a big one. We're still at a really early stage of what is going to happen with genetics. I recently, got my whole genome sequenced, and they can sequence your microbiome, so that's actually all the bacteria in your gut gets sequenced, and they can tell you if you're out of balance there. It's amazing what they can do, and I think it won't be that long until you'll be able to take a blood draw, and they'll be able to tell you, are you sick because you have a bacteria infection, a viral infection, and you're going to have made-to-order medicines. Whereas today, you sort of go sick, I'm going to take, paracetamol or, aspirin, which 99% of the time doesn't actually make a difference. So personalized medicine is going to be a big one in the future as well.
And then, Scott, beyond technology, like, how do you see people and organizational structures changing? When you talk to customers, like, what are the things that you're seeing that they're sharing around people and org structure changes?
Yeah, when I talk to organizations, a lot of organizations were built in a world when you shipped products on a relatively infrequent basis. So you might have a year-long development cycle and produce something at the end, or 2 years. And in that world, you really had a design phase, you then manufactured it, you then kind of worked with your support teams and your distribution teams and your marketing teams to sort of launch it, ship it, and support it. And then you get customer feedback, which would flow into the next cycle. And in that world, all your departments were really optimized within that department. Your design team got really good at designing, your development team got really good at developing. But when you're releasing every month or every week, you can no longer sort of do something in a department and throw it over the wall to the next department. And I think that's something that we do at Atlassian really well, is help break down those barriers between all the different departments in your organization. And there's no one out there that really does that. No other technology company, no other collaboration product that breaks down the barriers between all the different departments. And if you're going to release on a weekly basis and get customer feedback, you get better at working between departments rather than optimizing how good your interaction is in one department.
Yeah, maybe shifting from changes affecting teams to how Atlassian itself is changing. This past year was a big year for us in many ways. After 14 years as a private company, we became a public one. And I'm interested in what that means to both of you, and maybe how has Atlassian changed, Mike, as a result, or how will it change?
Look, I think from a what we do perspective, from a how we work perspective, what we build perspective, our goal is that it shouldn't have any major effect on the company, if any at all. We have the same goal. We've been doing this for 14 years. We're going to be doing it for at least the next 14 years. We have a lot of long unsolved problems, so we took a lot of time to make sure that it was done properly. I think we did a very good job, but it was one step on a long journey, and we celebrated that step, and we've moved on with continuing to focus on what all of you guys need us to do, which is build great products. So I was really proud of how we did that in terms of even internally to the company. It wasn't a huge distraction, which I think it can easily be. So I think that was, if anything, the biggest achievement that came out of that for us.
And not many people get to go through it. Like, what is an IPO like? And, maybe, it was just in December. What's sort of the greatest memory that each of you kind of take away from that particular experience in December?
Yeah, look, it's a surreal couple of weeks. There's no doubt about that. We did a lot of talking to a lot of very smart investors, which was excellent. We had the actual event itself, the morning, the pressing of the button and things like that, and then we spent all day in media interviews from around the world, which was kind of a unique experience. I think between the three of us, we did, 35 interviews or something in some number of hours. A couple of nice things. I really enjoyed the whole process. I found it intellectually incredibly interesting, so I think that was really good. I like the fact that we brought, for those who probably don't know, sorry, I forget I'm talking to a large audience of people who probably don't know. We brought all of the people at Atlassian who'd been around more than 10 years with us, so it was a really nice, kind of very Atlassian personal touch. So we had a huge team of people with us to celebrate the big event, who had been on the journey for a long, long time. It felt like getting the band back together. It was just made it even more fun and special. And then we had a nice moment in some media interviews where we slipped out, I don't know what it was, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, wandered across Times Square and found a bad, dodgy New York pizza joint, and just the two of us sat there and ate a slice of pizza and had a 20-minute timeout to just kind of grip the chair and say, wow, this has been a weird ride, and then went back to the NASDAQ and kept going.
That was a bizarre time, because you press the button, you do all these press interviews, you're on CNBC, all these things, and then you go, cool, let's get some food. We've got McDonald's, we've got, okay, there's this dodgy pizza joint, and really the biggest decision was which pizza looks the freshest. Hadn't been sitting there for 45 minutes, and I guess we, do you want two slices or one, and then back into it, and I guess our concession to celebrating was last minute we organized a limo to take us from where we were in Times Square downtown to where we were going to celebrate with our staff. And, in the rush to, we organized it, kind of call some guy up, I need a limo in 15 minutes. And in the rush to organize that, we hadn't got any champagne or anything to celebrate. And so we, went down, 7th Avenue or something down south, and we had to stop at a corner liquor bar, sort of a little supermarket on the corner. And what's your most expensive bottle of champagne? We've just taken our company public, and it's, a $25 bottle of Spumante was the only thing that had cold. So we we celebrated our IPO with a $20 bottle of spumante.
Is that your favorite memory? The spumante?
It was just good. Yeah, it was a great. I guess it was good to spend time with Mike and celebrate that way.
Yeah, awesome. So, Atlassian's come a long way in the past 14 years. It's safe to say we're no longer a startup. 9 years ago, we were, not facing some of the same challenges that I think a lot of larger organizations face. And now at nearly 2,000 employees, we face a lot of those too. So I'm curious how your roles as CEOs have changed from running a small company to running now a very big global company. What's the hardest part?
Look, the hardest part for us personally is probably continuing to scale and learn. You've got to realize that you become a huge bottleneck to 2,000 amazing people getting their jobs done if you're not really careful. So, the pace that we have to learn at and continue to grow as individuals and as managers and as product people and everything that we do has to keep up with the pace of the company. And I think a big part of that, we now have roughly 2,000 people in 10 offices around the world. Communication becomes a huge challenge, right? It's not so much just get everyone in a room and explain how you're feeling or thinking about a topic. So now we do, we have weekly all hands that we do. We actually use some of the video technology inside HipChat. We built an all hands product that we use internally that's pretty nice. Gets all the offices together, gets a sense of connection of them all going. It's like a real-time stream. So that's one of the biggest changes in communication, getting it out. We've got to do a lot more talking and communicating to staff than we used to do when we were 20 people.
Yeah. How about for you, Scott? What's the hardest challenge?
I think the bottleneck, as you said, the bottleneck's always at the top of the bottle. So the company's going to be as slow or as fast as Mike and I can grow and scale ourselves. And everyone in this audience knows how challenging that is when you're in a fast growth company to keep up with that pace and change. I just got to echo communication. With the all hands we do it every single week for 30 minutes. And we dial in between, 4 and 6 different locations around the world who all listen to us on the all hands or watch the recording later. And that's a huge thing to do every single week. But it's amazing, we've only been doing this for about 6 months, how much we feel like one company now because we cross live to Sydney, we cross live to San Francisco, Manila, Austin, and we can sort of see that we're actually one company around the world, and that's been a big thing for us. Even though people, collaborate on HipChat and Confluence and know all the names, to see the people on a weekly basis made a huge difference to us. And so I think the scaling stuff is, I guess the same things all your big businesses may struggle with. What's the strategy we need to go towards? And for us, that's been teams since we started and the culture and values we've had. But every year, what's the big thing we want to tackle? And getting 2,000 people to focus on that. So we produce a document once a year that really lists the top priorities for the company, and everyone has to line up behind those top priorities. And their goal setting every single year is about that. And again, we have to remind people every week, every month about we call it a VTFM. But remind people about that strategy document and then the big thing we're trying to achieve.
This is our 8th summit. For folks in the audience for whom it's their first, what advice do you have for them, and what do you hope that they actually get out of the next 2 days?
Sleep when you get home.
Sleep and get home.
Sleep when you get home. Look, Summit's an incredible experience. We deliberately limit the number of people that come to Summit. We could run a Summit that's 5 or 10 times larger if we wanted to, but we make sure that we select the people who are really invested in Atlassian and making sure they use our products, that they're deeply involved in the ecosystem. And I think if you're here for the first time, the thing I get told most is that this conference is different to most other conferences because the people here are really emotionally invested in solving a problem for their teams when they go back to work next week. And so really take advantage of that. Talk to all the vendors out in the exhibition hall. They'll explain how they can help. Talk to other people you meet and just stop and have random hallway conversations. Pretty much every person here has an incredibly unique story and have done incredible things with our products. And hopefully you go home next week with 100 stories about other people doing amazing things and things you want to copy from them.
Anything to add?
No, I think that's the main thing. You're here to learn. You can learn from us. You can learn from the sessions. There's a lot of Atlassians. Please take the chance, go up and say hi. We're all very friendly. They'll be wearing the blue T-shirts, which we're not wearing. Sorry, will tomorrow. Please go up and say hi. It's a buzz for them to learn your stories, to hear what you need us to change, what you need us to add, grow, etc. So please talk to the Atlassians and then talk to other people here, right? You can learn as much sometimes from the person sitting on your left and right.
And then the question back around to you guys, like, what do you two hope to get out of the next 2 days?
I mean, I always take away customer stories, right? Sometimes our job is very strange. I mean, we're in the software world. We sell SaaS services and software, downloaded through the internet, and you can go years without even meeting a human being that uses your technology. So there's a sense of just meeting people. I like to, we've got design labs and testing labs and all sorts of things. You'll see me kind of hanging around there as well, because it's the greatest chance we have every year to meet the real human beings en masse that use our software and learn very quickly both their stories and what we can do to improve it.
You'll be surprised how much customer feedback goes back into our products. Many of the things we do, we productize, are actually customers who've pushed our products in a certain way. And we had a partner day last night, well, sort of a partner party last night. I met a whole bunch of partners, and they push our products in certain ways, and we get that feedback, and then we give it back to everyone in the ecosystem. So that's awesome to get the feedback. And the second one is just to hear the success stories. I'll hear them tomorrow and the next day from people that are using our products in your organizations. But we had heard success stories last night from all the partners and people that have built amazing businesses that started as two-person consulting shops, now have 200 people working on Atlassian. And that's really rewarding to kind of have an entire ecosystem we've built on the back of Atlassian.
Maybe to shift into one final topic in the time we have, culture. And this year at Summit, we had a track on team and culture, Mike, and I thought I'd ask you to talk about why that's there and what people could expect to learn if they go to some of the sessions in that track.
Sure. It's been a huge passion project of mine, I guess, to make it a track, so I'm really happy that it is a track now. Why is it there? Fundamentally, we make collaboration tools for all sorts of different domains, as I'm sure you're aware. But tools alone doesn't help teams get better, right? We can be a piece of an ingredient in the recipe, if you like, but increasingly, process and all sorts of other things are incredibly important. And we do a lot of quite innovative things at work, and we have a lot of customers that do quite innovative things in the processes and the way their teams work, the patterns they have, the plays they run. And so we're really trying to share as much of that at Summit as possible. So we've got a full 2-day track, some fantastic talks on everything from how we construct our workplaces in the physical environment to the team playbook that we're releasing. Sort of the most popular session last year was around the team health checks that we run. We've got a 2.0 of that, if you like. New revisions, our new learnings from the year, whole bunch of things in that angle. We've got sessions on diversity in teams. We've got sessions on people doing innovation. You hear a lot from us on Ship It and those sorts of things, but other customers who have their own innovation practices. So there's a lot in that track that's just purely around team and culture and how you can take back little tidbits to make your team better. I think it's a great track.
But people sometimes think that team and culture has to start at the top. Like that unless you're the CEO or running a department or division, you don't have the power to change the team and culture at your company. And so everything we put into that track is stuff that you can go back, no matter where you are in your organization, and make a difference next week. So it's really practical advice, things you can go back and do, even if you're a part of a team, you're not even an official leader. You can influence your team, things best practices. So please don't think that track is only for people in sort of senior leadership positions. It's for every person in this room.
Yeah, one audience question that was submitted and kind of voted up was around culture, specifically asking, whether we had a silver bullet around recruitment or retention, specifically how we thought about retention. And that was just an opportunity to talk a little bit about the values and how foundational they've been to the company and how they've evolved with the company as we've grown.
The way I think about it, we have values and you have culture, and the values are the things that never change in an organization. And they're definitely not the words written on the wall. That like we have some swear words in our values, and that always gets a bit of a chuckle. But it's the way that they get lived every day that matters. And the values and the culture are different. Culture is actually the way work gets done in your organizations. And when we're with 2 people, that's different to when we're 200, different to 2,000. Work gets done very differently in a 2,000-person organization. And so I think culture changes over time. You just got to be deliberate about how you want it to change, but the values are things that you hold true. And so we have, I guess for the last maybe 6 or 7 years, we've actually had a values interview as part of our hiring process. So you don't get hired at Atlassian without a specific interview making sure that you're a fit for Atlassian. And that interview is not usually by someone in your department. It's someone else whose entire job is just to make sure that you are a good values fit for Atlassian. So I think that's been really key to us, hiring the right people on the way in. Occasionally you have to get rid of people that didn't fit the values, and that's always really hard. But it's important to make sure that they stay the same. And we also celebrate people that go on and do great things. We have people that leave Atlassian and actually start things in the Atlassian ecosystem. We have quite a few ecosystem partners, founded by graduates of Atlassian. And so it's great that, I guess, people are voting that even though they had to move a country or life situations changed, they stayed part of the Atlassian family.
In addition to values, like how does diversity, Mike, factor into the culture that you and Scott have focused on building over the past 14 years?
Oh, look, I think it's incredibly important. It's obviously a hugely tough issue for the technology industry in general, but it's something that we are very passionate about. We actually have a great session tomorrow afternoon. I'm looking forward on the diversity. We have a panel on diversity. I think it's a really, I like to zoom back, and I'll say this on the panel, I'm sure it'll get asked, but like, what you really want is diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of opinions, right? It gets very quickly into A versus B, whatever 2A and B you choose. But what's important is, we're making software for all of your teams. Your teams are incredibly diverse, right? We have customers here from how many countries? Like this year?
35?
37, something. So just that alone, it's going to be incredibly diverse. And so if we want to make the best products, we need to have a diverse company that can represent people from all those different countries, right? Without straying into any of the, the areas of diversity that people, get really wound up about. And that's just our simple philosophy, is that we want diversity of opinion inside the company to make the best products to appeal to the audience. We also try to focus on not just the sort of high-level metrics. We've, tried to put out our metrics. We try to really improve them, all the things that I think, the best companies try to do. But we've really focused on diversity of teams. And the reason that's important is, in any of the diversity metrics, if you have an A and a B, right, men and women, whatever it is, pick one, but there's a lot. Saying we have this many men and this many women is not helpful if they're all on one side of the room and they're all on the other side of the room, right? It's like you want each team to kind of have that makeup. And so we try it in our diversity stats, and we release them on a regular basis to show how many of our teams are diverse, right? And we think about that in engineering and in other aspects, is like, how diverse is this team and that team and that team is different to what's our kind of high-level 2,000-person metrics, right? We want to get that diversity of thought spread as widely as possible across the company.
Yeah. Mike, one other question for you. I mean, another big part of our culture is around giving back, and I think that started naturally with the two of you really early on. What was the catalyst for that? Where did that come from?
Look, I think we've always been quite, philanthropic people, I suppose, in some sort of a way. So, and then, the biggest catalyst, I suppose, was, both our mums got quite sick. Both of them had breast cancer at different times. And so we originally sort of, donated some money from the company to breast cancer research just because of our mums. And then thought, hang on a second, this isn't really a scalable process, right? Like, we wanted the company to have a philanthropic angle that was really important to us. And so the foundation has evolved from that humble beginning by basically saying, well, hang on, this is a company of many more people than the two of us. So we shouldn't be deciding that breast cancer is important or something else is important just because it's important to us, right? What's important to the whole company. And that's why we've really tried to get employees involved in the foundation and to represent, the sort of the corpus of employees to support, all sorts of things around the world, very heavily focused obviously on education, but also to acknowledge that the company lives in a whole series of different communities around the world. And so when people spend their employee time, helping the community that supports the company, whether that's in Sydney or in San Francisco or in Manila or in Amsterdam, we have a lot of communities that we live within, and I think it's important that companies do that.
And Scott, we started a 1% pledge really early on in the company's formation, and you've been active. Both you and Mike have been active in founding the Pledge 1% movement along with Salesforce. I thought that you'd talk a little bit about your goals for kind of broadening social responsibility and giving beyond the company.
Yeah, it's a personal passion project of mine, actually. About 2 years ago, I sat down and said, well, what can we, can I do personally beyond Atlassian and my family? Like, what's the way of making an impact in the world? And through my experience with Atlassian, we'd had just such success, giving back, philanthropic way. Like our foundation has given away millions of dollars. Employees get a chance to engage with nonprofits, and many people who wouldn't normally think about doing it now because of our foundation get involved, and they do a lot of stuff outside of Atlassian, both in a time and a money sense. And so we just had incredible impact with Atlassian. So I looked around and said, well, who else is doing this? Who else is kind of giving or pledging, to be philanthropic? Whether you're a small startup and you've got nothing to give today, or you're a large company with plenty of resources, how is there a standard kind of way of saying that you're philanthropic and pledging to give back? And there wasn't one. I thought, there'd be plenty out there. And so together with Salesforce and ourselves, we came together with Pledge 1%. And the idea is that if you pledge 1% of time, so employee time, product, giving products away for free, your equity, so if you eventually go public or have an exit, the equity goes to a foundation, or profit. And when we started that, I guess the idea was 2 years ago, and over the last 2 years, we've gone from 0 to 1,000 companies that have made the pledge. And I'm really proud, actually, that there's a whole host of our ecosystem partners that have also taken the pledge. And actually, if I can get the house lights on, this is unplanned, so the lighting team may not. If you're one of our ecosystem partners and your company has pledged 1%, can you please stand up so we can all give you a round of applause? These are companies who, maybe even in their earliest times, are pledging that they're going to give back to the community. And with these 1,000 companies, well, I should say that the fact that we've got a pledge makes a big difference, because I talked to many companies that were thinking about it, but having the fact that it's a formal organization and a sort of formal pledge that you can do means that it actually turns into action. And for many of these companies, I was chatting with the CEO of Twilio, who went public recently, and he said that in his conversation with his board, he wanted to give back, but with the board, it was like, well, what's the number? Do we give back, $100, $1,000, millions of dollars? What's the right number? And the fact that he could point and say, well, pledge 1% says it's 1%, meant that he had a much easier conversation with his board. And so, now they have, it must be tens of millions of dollars that they've donated because there was, I guess, a number to anchor on. And so if anyone's interested in learning more about that, please let me know. Come up to me after the presentation, because it's a passion of mine, and I think together we can change the way that corporate philanthropy works.
Finally, Mike, last question for you. Room to Read has been, before we bring John out, has been a primary philanthropic partner of Atlassian since 2009. Like, when and how did you first connect to their story? And, over the course of the relationship over the last 7 years, what has that relationship meant to Atlassians, and how has it changed? You?
I first read John's book, Leaving Microsoft to Change the World. I don't remember where I picked it up, probably in an airport or something, saw Microsoft changing the world, thought that looks like a good book. It definitely gripped me. It's a fantastic read if you haven't read it, about the founding of Room to Read and changing the world. And we, thought it was a good charity that the foundation should support. We actually sent them an email very early on and said, hey, we're running this starter license thing. We're going to give away, some software. It's $5. We're going to run it for 5 days. We think we'll give it to charity. And, it was like, sure. And I think we made $110 grand or something in the 5 days. And I remember we sent a check, and then John rang me and was like, who are you guys and what do you do? I've just got this $100,000 check that arrived. So that was thanks to all of you guys that spent $5. If anyone, did anyone spend $5 way back when? A couple of people? Yeah, awesome, thank you. So it made a huge difference, and it started a great relationship over the years. You know, we've both now been to visit a whole series of projects. I've been to visit projects in multiple countries that Room to Read does, and it's a fantastic organization.
Yeah, I mean, whether a good opportunity kind of to introduce John, whether you realize it or not, starter licenses, those 10 user, $10 licenses, those that $10 basically goes directly to Room to Read. And so whether you realize it or not, many of you in the audience are contributing to educating a child, or building a library, or producing a children's book in their native tongue, in their local language, and it means a lot. And we're super excited to welcome John Wood, the founder of Room to Read, to share more about the impact that Room to Read, along with your support and Atlassian support, is having around the world. And before we do that and bring him out, we'd like to share a little bit of a video about Room to Read.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome founder, Room to Read, John Wood.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. I was at one of the first Atlassian summits back when it was held at the Palace Hotel in San Francisco with about 250 people. And I think we all love a good growth story. It's great to see how Atlassian's grown, how Summit's grown, and over the years, how the Room to Read relationship with Atlassian has grown so quickly. I want to thank all of you who have bought starter licenses and all of you who are Atlassian employees. You've done so much to help Room to Read to change the world. We, just like Atlassian 15 years ago, were an unknown startup. I quit Microsoft in 1999 to start Room to Read with the goal of helping kids all around the developing world who had otherwise lost the lottery of life to gain an education and to hopefully start the journey to a life out of poverty, because education is one of the biggest ways you can get children from a young age out of poverty. We didn't really have a lot going for us in the early years except the dream of reversing the lottery of life, that no child should be told you're born in the wrong place at the wrong time to the wrong family, and you therefore will not get educated. We opened, I think, 2 libraries our first year, 2 schools, and about 10 libraries our second year, and then things started to take off. And I'm very proud to say with Atlassian as one of our largest partners, Room to Read last year reached an incredible milestone. We reached our 10 millionth student last year. 10 million kids in over 12 countries around the world are now in our system. In our happy little ecosystem. You know, one of the reasons I started and wanted to quit Microsoft to start the organization with my co-founders was because I took a trip to Cambodia in 1994 that changed my life forever. And a lot of Atlassian support of Room to Read is focused on Cambodia, although we do work in 11 other countries around the world. And that was in 1994 in the aftermath of the genocide. The Khmer Rouge had killed 1.7 million people, had murdered thousands of teachers, and had burned down schools. I was in Cambodia in 1994, and my motorcycle guide was showing me around the temples of Angkor Wat. And we drove by a building that had been burned down, this burnt-out shell of a building. And I asked the motorcycle guide, what is this? And he said, well, this was our school. And I said, well, why has it not been built back? Why do you not have a school? You need to have school for your kids if you're going to rebuild your country. And the motorcycle driver told me, I know. He said, many people come here, tourists, government officials, United Nations officials, and they tell us they'll help us. And they tell us they'll help us to rebuild our school. But we never see those people again. And I vowed to never be that guy they never saw again. And I think Atlassians vowed to work with us to make sure that we don't overlook these places in the world that prosperity and the technology boom have not yet hit. That was the reality then. What we're going to show on the screen now is just the reality of what Room to Read and Atlassian are creating together today. This idea that every single child everywhere, both the boy child and the girl child, deserves a chance to gain the incredible lifelong gift of education. Room to Read was a startup nobody had heard of 15 years ago. How have we gotten to the point now of reaching over 10 million children, 10.7 million as of today, 15 million by the end of 2020? Well, our founding team took a lot of the same lessons you all learn in the world of technology and the world of business, of applying business best principles to philanthropy and scaling it up and running it efficiently and running it with KPIs and dashboards. And in salute to Jay and Mike and Scott and the Atlassian Foundation team for the years of friendship and support, I've taken some of Atlassian's core values and want to explain how Room to Read's grown using those Atlassian core values. One of Atlassian's most famous core values, of course, is no bullshit, open culture. We believe in that at Room to Read. If you go to roomtoread.org, you won't see 1 year of financials or 2 years of financials or 3 years of financials. You'll see 7 years of financials. You want to know how much money I'm paid or how much money our CEO is paid? That's online. We're transparent. I'm really proud of the fact that we've sponsored over 2,500 school construction projects around the world in the last 15 years. Almost every one of those has a family or a company name associated with it because we're telling our investors exactly where the money's going. We don't say the money goes into a black box. We tell people, here's the library you funded, here's the literacy program you funded, here's the local language book you helped us to create. A second part of Atlassian's value system is the whole idea of don't F-word the customer. My mother would kill me if I used the F-word on a public stage on a webcast. So let's just say, be obsessed with the needs of the customer. In our case, the customers are the little people, the kids who need to get educated. Early on, we learned that one of the biggest needs of our customers was to have children's books in their mother tongue. Children's books in Khmer, Vietnamese, Nepalese, Sinhalese, Tamil, etc. And one of the reasons for that is that the for-profit publishers don't publish books in languages spoken by poor people. Why would you? There's no market. Poor people don't have money for books. Yet one of the reasons the poor stay poor is because their kids don't get educated, they don't have a solid foundation for education. So we started in 2004 to do a search to find the Dr. Seuss of Nepal, to find the J.K. Rowling of South Africa, to find the Tintin of Tanzania, and give them the opportunity to publish, to write, to illustrate local language children's books. The Skoll Foundation, many of you may know Jeff Skoll is the founding president of eBay. The Skoll Foundation underwrote our first 10 titles in 2004. From little things, big things grow. I'm very proud to say now that Room to Read is the biggest children's publisher you've never heard of. We've published now over 1,250 original titles and put 17 million books in the hands of kids through our local language publishing program. So the power is there to think obsessively about the customer. Thank you. Another value of Atlassian that we've adapted from the very beginning is passion and urgency infuse everything we do. Passion for education is something that our team is so into. We all know that without education, you're not you. Without education, I'm not me. passion for education infuses everything in our organization, but also a fierce sense of urgency. We are very proud that we've reached 10.7 million children. But more importantly, we're aware there are hundreds of millions of kids who have not heard of Room to Read, and they need to hear from us, because every day we lose is a day we don't get back. And we cannot let non-state players, when it comes to, let's say, girls' education and secondary school for girls and young women, we cannot allow non-state actors like Boko Haram and ISIS and Al-Qaeda to control the narrative and to control what happens. Our message to those actors who are against kids' education should be very simply, screw you. You must lose, and we must win, and get every single kid everywhere in the world into school. It's a fierce urgency. Finally, Atlassian talks a lot about teaming up and teamwork, and that's a very important thing to us at Room to Read. When we started, we were unknown, just a few employees with a very small budget. But we've reached out to the tech community, the business community. I'm very proud of the fact that the communities we work with donate sweat equity to each project, so the Room to Read project is not viewed as a free gift from overseas. It's viewed as something the community has put skin in the game and put their own sweat equity into. Atlassian, about 2,000 employees. Room to Read's now up to about 1,300 employees, 88% of whom are local, national. They're close to the customer, close to the kids. They're Cambodians in Cambodia, Vietnamese in Vietnam, South Africans in South Africa, and about 15,000 volunteers around the world who are involved in our fundraising chapter. So one way you can get involved in Room to Read, ideally, is to go to roomtoread.org and go look for our Get Involved page and sign on. Sponsor a project, get your company involved, become a volunteer. We have 15,000 volunteers now from San Francisco to New York, from London to Zurich, from Hong Kong to Tokyo to Sydney, where I first met Jay and Mike and Scott. Why is teaming up important? Let me close by telling you why, for us at Room to Read, teaming up is important. We think there's only one of my favorite adages, an African proverb, is that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And we really want to go far. We're excited about the idea that we can reach our 15 millionth student by 2020. But I go back to that fierce urgency of now, of every day we lose is the day we don't get back. And if you look out 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, Room to Read's moonshot goals are all about ending illiteracy and ending gender inequality. So that every boy goes to school, every girl goes to school, every boy and every girl gets literate, they graduate and they become part of a more civilized, a more stable, a more prosperous world through the lifelong gift of education. We want to team up, and we love the Pledge 1% movement. For this reason, is we know there's a long, long ways to go. And long-term, Room to Read's goal is very simple. We want to forever end the notion that any little person can be told, sorry, you were born in the wrong place, at the wrong time, to the wrong family, and you therefore will not get educated, and you therefore will be one more generation to live in poverty. Our message is a much more positive one. We want to say to every person, every kid across the world, you are born in the right place at the right time, because Room to Read was there for you, Atlassian was there for you, Pledge 1% companies were there for you, Atlassian summer participants were there for you. Let's think big about this. Let's not think small. Let's go big. Let's go big and be proud of this whole idea of every single child everywhere is going to be told right place, right time equals education for everybody in the world, no exceptions. Thank you very, very, very much for letting me speak to you today. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, you might think, why at a technology conference do we invite John to come speak about Room to Read? And the reason is that our support for Room to Read is only possible because of every single person in this audience. We've gone from nothing to being Room to Read's largest corporate sponsor. This year we've given $1 million to Room to Read, and over the lifetime we've given $6 million of Atlassian's money to Room to Read, only because of the support that we have from you in the audience. And tonight we're taking it even further. We're pledging on behalf of everyone here an additional $100,000 to Room to Read. So thank you very much, John, for all the work you do.
Awesome. Thank you. That's great news. Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
Thank you. I do want to say that's amazing news, and to put that in perspective, because I know that you all are very results-driven, in your work, and I think we should all be results-driven in our philanthropy. But that $100,000 is enough for Room to Read to print 100,000 additional children's books in a mother tongue. So if you think about the power of one book to change the life of a child, that's up by 100,000. It's also enough for us to put 333 additional young women in our long-term girls education program. So thank you for allowing us to do that. 6 million life to date, huge for us. And I do have to say that Atlassian is always very, very creative in their fundraising. And so Atlassian's actually bought 100 copies of my book, Leaving Microsoft to Change the World. I'm going to be signing them out at the swag store. The cool thing is you pay $20, and the money does not go back to Atlassian. The money actually goes to Room to Read. So it's one more way if we can sell out of our 100 books, that would be enough money to print a couple thousand extra children's books. So I hope to meet many of you at the swag store.
Great, thanks. That's the end of the Fireside chat tonight and the start of our summit. So please enjoy the drinks and canapes and entertainment we have for you in the sponsor exhibit behind, and we'll see you tomorrow morning bright and early for the first keynote. Thank you very much.